There's a level of the internet they don't talk about in documentaries or horror forums. Not really. Not the dark web, not the shadow web. Something deeper. A place that doesn't appear in hidden wikis or get mentioned on Reddit or 4chan. It's called the Quiet Network. No one tells you how to find it. You only ever hear about it in fragments, messages posted to forums that get deleted 5 minutes later, links that only work once, usernames that only exist for a few hours, and then vanish forever. The Quiet Network is not a place. It's a process, a transformation. And I found it by accident. It started with an audio file. I was on a dead Discord server one night. You know the type. 10 or so users still online. No activity in days. One of the channels was named Number Hollows. No context. I clicked it. The only message inside was a pinned post by a deleted user. A link to an FTP server. The file was named listen.flak. I downloaded it out of curiosity. The file was only 6 seconds long. When I played it, all I heard was a soft hum. Nothing else. But something about the sound made me feel wrong. Like someone was breathing on the back of my neck. Just static, I told myself. But then I did something stupid. I opened the file in a spectrogram editor. That's when I saw it. Hidden in the frequencies, layered into the image, was a distorted shape, a QR code. I scanned it. It took me to a page with a single download link, sable.x. I ran it on a virtual machine. I'm not that stupid. It opened a command prompt, black screen. One line blinking, enter passcode. I tried typing guest. Nothing. I waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Suddenly, my speakers let out a brief metallic chime, like the pluck of a broken guitar string, and my screen flashed white for less than a second. Then nothing. No logs. No error. But when I reopened my Tor browser, there was a new bookmark at the top, named QN no URL. No icon, just QN. I clicked it. The page was pure black, nothing but one sentence in white text. You may leave your name at the door. 2 buttons appeared beneath it, yes and no. I clicked yes. The page went black again, then reloaded into a crude, early 2000s style forum. Simple fonts, no branding, no categories, just one thread title. Entry level, Quiet Network Induction. I clicked it. Inside was a list of instructions. It was written like a manual. Cold, efficient, chilling in its specificity. Welcome to the Quiet Network. Your presence is not recorded. There are no usernames, no profiles. You may view but not be seen. Posting privileges must be earned. Earn by obeying. Obey by observing. Observe by watching. Then a link. Watch. I clicked it. It was a live stream. A grainy, flickering feed of what looked like a storage room. Cement floor. Exposed beams. No windows. Just one overhead light swinging slightly. Nothing happened for several minutes. I was about to close it. Then someone entered the room. A child. Alone. Maybe 5 or 6 years old. Standing in the middle of the room holding a stuffed rabbit. They just stood there, still. Silent. A minute passed. Then another figure entered. An adult, wearing a plain gray jumpsuit. Their face was blurred, not digitally, but somehow naturally, like my eyes couldn't quite see it. The adult knelt beside the child and whispered something I couldn't hear. The child began to cry. The stream ended. I stared at the black screen for a long time. When I went back to the forum, a new thread had appeared. Assessment. Your reaction has been recorded. I didn't understand what that meant. But I wasn't scared yet. Not really. Over the next week, more pages unlocked, not all at once, just one new thread each day. They had titles like The Art of Obedience, Mothers Without Names, Replacing the Face, Acquisition Criteria, Ideal Measurements, ages 3 to 7. I still thought this was some kind of ARG, some elaborate horror experiment, until the email came. It landed in a throwaway proton mail I'd only ever used once to sign up for a now-defunct Onion site that sold antique dolls. The subject line was blank. The sender was just mother@quiet.net. Inside the email, 3 sentences. You are a watcher now. Watching comes with responsibility. A child has been matched to you. Attached was a .txt file. I opened it. There was a name, Levy A picture. A little boy, maybe 6, with light hair and hollow eyes. Location, just a city name and coordinates, less than 40 miles from where I lived. Instructions, retrieve Levi, use back entrance. Key is under rock near AC unit. Mother does not wait. My body went cold. It was only then that I realized they had matched a child to me. They knew where I lived. They knew what city I was in. They had chosen me. I didn't sleep that night or the next. I debated deleting everything, wiping all drives, burning my machine. But the quiet network doesn't let you leave. Not really. 3 days after the email, I got another message. This one had no text, just a new link. It was a live stream again, same cement room. Levi was there. But this time he was tied to a chair. A timer counted down in the corner of the screen. 03, 24, 0003, 23, 59, 003, 23, 58. I watched it tick for a full minute, numb with fear. Then the screen flashed. You have 3 hours to comply. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't. I grabbed my phone, drove to the location in the email. Not to follow instructions, but to get help. I thought maybe there was still time. Maybe I could save him. The coordinates led to an old house on a quiet street. Looked empty. For sale sign in the front yard. I parked around the corner and called the police. I told them there was a child in danger, possibly kidnapped. Gave the address, said I was a passerby. They said they'd send someone. I waited in the car. 15 minutes passed. Then a cruiser showed up. The officer walked around back. Looked confused. Knocked on the door. Waited. No answer. He radioed something, then drove away. I checked the live stream again. The timer was gone. The feed now showed an empty chair and a stain on the floor. The site went dark after that. No more bookmarks, no more emails. My Tor browser wouldn't even open. When I tried to relaunch Sabel, it just said, "You are no longer necessary." That was 8 months ago. I've tried forgetting, tried living normally, but every night I still hear it, that hum from the audio file. Sometimes I think it's still playing somewhere, embedded in my computer or maybe in my mind. And sometimes, when I'm out walking at night, I hear it behind me, a soft hum, then a whisper. You may leave your name at the door. And I know what it means now. They're offering me another chance. And this time, if I watch, I might not just be a watcher. I found the note in the bathroom mirror. Not taped, not written on sticky paper. It was inside the mirror, like someone had written it on the other side of the glass. I'm going to kill myself tonight, it said, in my wife Erin's familiar looping handwriting. I stood there for too long, half-dressed, razor still humming in my hand, waiting for the steam to fade and take the message with it. But it didn't. It just stayed there. A sentence frozen in glass, like it was meant for me to find, but only if I looked at the right angle, at the right moment. I stared at my reflection until it blinked. That's how it started. Erin had been struggling with sleep for years. Insomnia, night terrors, full-on episodes of sleep paralysis where she swore someone was standing at the edge of the bed, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. I did everything I could. White noise machines, blackout curtains, doctor referrals. Nothing worked, nothing helped. She said her dreams had begun to overlap. She couldn't tell when she was awake anymore. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has bad dreams. Hell, I'd had a few myself lately. Weird ones, violent ones, the kind where I woke up screaming with the taste of blood in my mouth and couldn't remember why. But Erin, she started acting different. She was quiet, withdrawn. I'd wake up to find her standing in the hallway, facing the wall. She wouldn't respond to her name. Then she'd blink and say she'd been dreaming the whole time. Once, she told me there was something living in the attic. When I asked her to explain, she just said, "It used to be me." That night, the night of the mirror note, I barely slept. I waited beside her in bed, eyes wide open, watching the rise and fall of her breath. Around 3:13 a.m., she gasped awake, bolting upright like she just surfaced from a lake. "I saw you," she said. "What?" "In the dream, but it wasn't your dream. It was his." Her eyes were wide. Her pupils looked wrong. Too large. Too dark. Whose dream? She didn't answer. The next morning, she was gone. The police didn't take it seriously at first. Adults are allowed to disappear. Maybe she just needed a break, a vacation. But she hadn't taken anything. Not her keys, not her wallet, just vanished. I started retracing her footsteps. Her internet history was erratic. Deep dive forums on lucid dreaming, dream walking, shared dreaming, obscure Reddit threads and archived pages in Slavic and Sanskrit. One phrase repeated over and over: "The sleeper who opens doors." There was a local number scribbled in her notebook, no name. I called it. A woman answered and said nothing, but I could hear someone else breathing in the background. Long, shuddering breaths, like they were being forced to sleep. Then a voice whispered, "The dreamer has remembered you." Click. That night I slept on the couch. I didn't mean to fall asleep, I didn't want to, but exhaustion took me. And then I was there. A house I'd never seen before, but somehow recognized. The walls breathed, the floors pulsed. I heard music playing from the basement, low, warped, like a record left in the sun. I wandered the rooms, each one stranger than the last, one filled with photographs of people whose faces were scratched out, one with a dozen beds, each occupied by a sleeping version of me. At the top of the stairs, Erin stood with her back to me. She was holding something in her hands. A mask, I thought, something that looked like a face. And she turned around. But it wasn't Erin. It was someone wearing her like a costume, her eyes rolled completely white. "You don't belong here," she said in my voice. I woke up choking on feathers. The couch was shredded. Couch cushions burst open. My fingers bled. I'd clawed it apart in my sleep. I found a message scrawled on the wall behind the couch, smeared in something that smelled metallic and old. "The door opens both ways." Over the next week, I stopped sleeping entirely. It didn't help. The dreams still came, woke me into them. I'd find myself mid-conversation in a place that didn't exist, talking to people I'd never met but who seemed to know me. They would call me by names I didn't recognize. A boy with hollow eyes said, "You were my father last time." A woman with no mouth handed me a watch and said, "When it stops ticking, you die for real." Sometimes I saw Erin, but not as herself. Once she was buried to her neck in soil, eyes wide, lips moving but no sound. Another time she was standing on the ceiling, upside down, her jaw stretched so wide I thought it would split her in two. Always she looked at me with that same expression, recognition and regret. I think she tried to warn me, but I never heard the words. I checked myself into a sleep clinic. They wired me up, asked the usual questions. I told them I didn't know if I was awake right now. They nodded politely. The first night I flatlined. "You said something while you were under," she said. "I thought it was Latin, but it was gibberish. And then you laughed. Like, not a normal laugh. It didn't sound human." I asked to see the footage. They said the file had corrupted. Every camera in the room failed at the same moment. On my last night at the clinic, I dreamt of her again. She was waiting in our old apartment, the one we had before we got married. Everything looked the same. Same coffee table, same couch. She sat cross-legged on the floor, smiling, her head tilted slightly. "You found the way," she said. "I don't understand," I told her. "You will, soon." Then she lifted her hands and showed me her wrists, deep yawning slits. But instead of blood, there were eyes inside, blinking, watching. And as they blinked, the room began to melt. I woke up in the attic of my childhood home. I don't know how I got there. It was dusty, untouched. The windows were nailed shut. And the mirror, the old one my father had locked away after my sister died, was uncovered, standing in the center of the room. Someone had drawn a door on it, with chalk, a door with no knob. And above it, written in something darker than ink, "Go back to sleep." I've been here ever since. I don't think I'm in the real world anymore. Not completely. I walk down the street and the people have too many teeth. I try to use my phone and it bleeds. My reflection doesn't move with me anymore, but sometimes when I concentrate hard enough, when I sleep inside the dream, I get back, for minutes at a time. An hour if I'm lucky. I tried leaving a note for myself, scratched into the bathroom mirror with a razor blade, but it just bled. Erin comes to visit me now, or whatever wears her face. She sings to me in the voice of my mother. She holds my head and whispers, "This is what you wanted. You wanted to leave your body. You did. You just forgot the way back. I remember now. I remember the God ticket. I used to think it meant freedom, but it means this: being trapped in 100 versions of yourself, killing and dying and waking and sleeping over and over until you forget which one was real. There's someone else in here with me. I see them through the mirrors sometimes. They look just like me, but older, wiser. They look sorry. Sometimes I wonder if they are dreaming me. And if they are, I hope they wake up soon." I was 28 when my employer, Martin Kell, sent me on what was supposed to be a routine retrieval. I had worked at his antique shop, The Gilded Age, for 6 years. Tucked away between a closed-down bookstore and a pawn shop that always reeked of old smoke, Martin's place was a cramped but charming haven for collectors. We catered to oddities, taxidermy, Masonic tools, old puppets, and the occasional mortuary relic. Over time, I'd become Martin's go-to for pickups. While he schmoozed with clientele or appraised dusty relics, I drove to the remote estates, storage units, and long-forgotten basements that fed our shelves. This time, it was an estate out in Darnham Hollow, about 90 miles north. The job: collect a box of items left in a barn on the family's property. Martin was vague, just said it belonged to a woman who passed without heirs, and that the lot had been prepaid by a lawyer. I remember thinking the whole setup felt unfinished. No name for the client, no contact to meet me, and no itemized list. Just a printed email from the lawyer. Retrieve the crate marked HP and return it unopened. It was a Thursday when I drove out. The farther I got from the city, the stranger the air felt. Darnham Hollow wasn't on the GPS. I had to follow handwritten directions once I passed a rusted iron gate sunk into the forest like a forgotten jawbone. The road narrowed until it was no more than a pair of muddy tracks slicing through leafless trees. When I finally saw the barn, my stomach turned. It leaned slightly to the left, like it was exhausted from existing. The house nearby was long burned down. Just a blackened stone chimney remained, jutting into the gray sky like a jagged finger. The wind was oddly still, like the air didn't dare move around that place. I parked and stepped into silence. No birds, no insects, just the creak of the barn's door as I pushed it open. The inside was musty, cobwebbed, and dark, despite the late afternoon light. I flicked on my flashlight. Dust danced in the beam like agitated spirits. Most of the barn was empty, just broken tools, a rusted lantern, and the smell of something old and sweet, like rotting fruit. In the back, under a mildew-speckled tarp, I found the crate. It was about 4 feet long, nailed shut, with the letters HP painted in red on the side. Something about the color bothered me. It hadn't faded like the rest of the barn's contents. It looked fresh, wet, almost. When I touched the crate, I flinched. It was warm. I told myself it was just the sun heating the wood through the holes in the roof. Still, I didn't like how the air around it felt heavier, like I was intruding. I hoisted the crate onto my dolly and wheeled it back to the van. As I loaded it into the back, I noticed something strange. My watch had stopped ticking. I tapped it. Nothing. When I checked my phone, the screen glitched and froze. I drove back without music. I tried turning on the radio, but it only played static, no matter the station. At some point, I looked in the rearview mirror and felt my chest tighten. The crate was open. I slammed on the brakes. My van screeched to a halt on the side of the road. I threw open the back doors. The lid of the crate was lying on the floor. Nails that had once held it down were bent outward, like something had pushed them from the inside. Inside the crate was a large, cloth-wrapped object. I didn't unwrap it then. I couldn't. Something told me not to. I slammed the lid back on, hammered it shut with my tire iron, and drove the rest of the way without looking back. Martin was waiting at the shop when I returned. He looked up from his ledger, squinting as I wheeled in the crate. "That's it?" "Yeah," I said, my voice flat. "It opened on the way." Martin's brow furrowed. "Opened?" I told him what happened. He chuckled nervously and waved me off. "Probably loose nails. Don't worry, I'll take a look in the morning." I was halfway out the door when he added, "Thanks, Jeremy. Get some rest." But I didn't rest. That night I woke at 3:03 a.m. to the sound of a bell ringing. It was faint, like a handbell, coming from somewhere deep in the building. I live in a small apartment above the shop. It was always silent at night. No ringing, no movement. I got out of bed and listened. The bell rang again, sharper now. It seemed to echo. I went downstairs. The store was dark, save for the green glow of the exit sign. The bell rang again. Closer. It was coming from the crate. I approached slowly. The air grew colder the nearer I got. The lid was off again, lying on the floor beside the crate. The cloth-wrapped object inside was gone. The bell rang again. Behind me. I turned around and saw nothing. I stayed at a hotel that night. The next morning I went back and found Martin sitting behind the counter, pale and silent. The crate was still open. The object was back inside. "What the hell is this thing?" I asked. He didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, "It's called the Bell of Harrow's Path." He slid a manila folder across the counter. Inside were yellowed documents, photographs, and one deeply unsettling journal entry. The bell, according to legend, came from a 19th century asylum once located near Darnham Hollow. It was said to have hung in the head physician's quarters. It was used to summon the orderlies, until, one night, the bell rang on its own and the staff found the physician dead, nailed to the ceiling. From that day on, the patients began to change. They chanted in languages they'd never spoken before. Some cut their own eyelids off to see better. Others claimed the bell whispered names to them, names of people who would die soon. Within months, the asylum burned to the ground. No survivors. The bell was never found. Until now. Martin had bought it from an estate sale representing the family of the last known asylum staff member, a nurse who'd vanished in the 1950s. Her house had stood, abandoned on the same property I'd visited. Martin looked at me, his eyes sunken. "I think we made a mistake bringing it here." That night, the bell rang again. Over the next week, things worsened. The shop's lights flickered constantly. Clocks stopped. Our few remaining customers complained of headaches and nausea. A delivery boy quit after swearing he saw a girl standing in the shadows by the back wall, mouth open in silent scream. I started dreaming of corridors, long, endless white hallways lined with doors. From behind them, the bell rang. Each night, the sound got closer. Martin stopped coming in, said he was sick. I visited once, found him curled in bed, muttering. His hands were bandaged. I asked what happened. He whispered, "I tried to touch it." I went back to the shop, determined to destroy the bell. I brought a sledgehammer. When I removed the cloth from around it, I nearly screamed. It was beautiful in the worst way. Made of tarnished brass, flecked with something darker. The clapper inside was wrapped in what looked like human hair. Etchings circled its base, tiny figures with eyeless faces. Around the handle, a single word, "Welcome." I raised the hammer. The bell rang. I dropped the hammer and fell to my knees. My vision went black. I was in the hallway again. Only this time I wasn't alone. A girl stood beside me. Her face was a smooth, blank oval. She turned her head toward one of the doors. From behind it came a whisper, "Let me in." I woke up gasping, bleeding from the nose. The bell sat silently on the counter. I wrapped it again and sealed it in a lead-lined case. I contacted the lawyer who had arranged the pickup. No answer. His office was empty when I visited, abandoned for months. I put the case in the basement behind a false wall. I quit the shop. Martin died 2 weeks later, hanged himself. His note read, "The bell calls who it wants." I moved states, changed my number, got a normal job. For a while, the dream stopped, but 3 days ago, I received a package at my door. No return address, just my name written in red ink. Inside was a photograph. The shop. Its windows were dark, but in the reflection of the glass, I could see something behind the counter. A small brass bell. And beside it, a girl with no face. When StreamCore launched in 2012, it was hailed as the future of video sharing, live broadcasting for the masses, a seamless blend of YouTube's openness with Twitch's interactivity. Built with Silicon Valley brilliance and dark mode sleekness, it quickly became the go-to app for creators, activists, educators, and the chronically bored. By 2018, over 400 million active users had joined the platform, but few remembered its quieter update in 2020. Legacy Vault, a digital feature that allowed users to schedule posthumous content. A farewell message, a tribute video, a last creative work. The feature was opt-in, requiring biometric authentication, death certificate confirmation, and a secondary digital witness. It sounded respectful, clean, safe. I thought so too, until last year. My name's Andre Carlson. I'm a digital media consultant and father of 2, living in Portland. I'm also, perhaps regrettably, a longtime user of StreamCore. Not as a creator, but as a passive observer. I followed artists, cryptid hunters, a few indie journalists. Nothing out of the ordinary. In February of last year, I got a live alert from a StreamCore user I hadn't thought about in years. Jules Dwart Reverie. It made me sit upright in bed, bleary-eyed at 2:14 a.m. The name hit me like a punch, because Jules, real name Julia Reeves, had been my ex-girlfriend. And more than that, she was dead, or so I thought. We dated during college at UC Santa Cruz, drank wine from coffee mugs, read each other Sylvia Plath and Neil Gaiman, and recorded mini documentaries on her old DV camcorder. Julia had a knack for finding sadness in strange places, under overpasses, abandoned malls, forgotten gardens. She disappeared 5 years ago during a backpacking trip in Iceland. The story was vague and haunting. The search and rescue team found her journal beside a geothermal spring, its pages warped with steam, but no body. Her family later declared her legally dead. Her StreamCore page, like many of hers, became a digital memorial. Old videos of foggy ruins and soft-voiced monologues about loneliness and beauty. But that night, she went live. I stared at my phone in disbelief. Jules' Reverie is broadcasting now. My thumb hovered over the notification. For a moment, I debated if I was dreaming. I tapped in. The feed was dark, blacker than night. Not a silhouette, not even motion. Just the faintest ambient hum, like wind between walls. Then a whisper. "Can anyone hear me?" My heart stopped. It was her voice, breathier than I remembered, cracked at the edges, but unmistakably hers. I watched the screen for 5 minutes, stunned. There was no video, no movement. Only that static murmur, like old VHS tape winding, and once more, her voice. "I'm here. I'm still here." Then the stream ended. No explanation, no replay available. I sat up all night, scrolling through her archived videos. Nothing new had been added since 2018. I checked the Legacy Vault section. It was empty, no scheduled posts. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The next day, I called Nate. He was our third wheel in college, cinematographer, drone nerd, and Julia's best friend. Nate had taken her disappearance harder than anyone. They had grown up together in Burbank, filming ghost stories in their backyard. He picked up on the second ring. "Dre, you okay, man?" "I think I saw Julia last night on StreamCore." There was a long pause, a sharp exhale. Was it the feed? The black screen, her voice? "You've seen it too?" "I've gotten 5 in the past month," Nate said quietly. "Always late. Always just her voice. It's her, but it doesn't make sense." Did her family schedule something? Like a vault message? They never even claimed her account. I checked. A silence stretched between us. "Someone's screwing with us," he said eventually. Or she's alive," I said. He didn't reply. We met the next day in Portland at my office. Nate looked worse than I expected. Gaunt, twitchy, like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. He brought a manila folder, thick with printed logs. "I started documenting each stream. They follow a pattern," he said. He laid out a timeline. Every live broadcast had occurred at 2:14 a.m., always on Thursdays. Each lasted precisely 147 seconds, always audio only. No replies to chat, no replays. But here's the strange part. He'd tracked the IP origin of each stream. They're coming from a decommissioned StreamCore server in Eureka, California. That's impossible. They shut that data center down in 2022. I know, he said, but someone's in there. Or something. We decided to go. We told no one, not our families, not Julia's parents, just packed our gear and drove 10 hours south. The Stream Core Eureka facility was a low, concrete slab of a building nestled between warehouses. Its fencing was rusted. The signage had been ripped off. The parking lot was overgrown, but the security gate was unlocked. We slipped inside. The interior was gutted, server racks stripped, cables snaking across the floor like spider veins. The only light came from a cracked fluorescent panel flickering over an ancient vending machine. And then we heard it, humming, a rhythmic, low thrum coming from deeper within. We followed it. Through a rusted metal door marked Vault B, we entered a room that still had power, and in the center, glowing faintly on an active console, user, Jules Reverie, live streaming. Nate froze. This can't be real. I stepped closer. On the monitor, a black screen, her voice. I can't see. Where am I? Hello? Then static, but something new. A shape, it was faint. A face, blurry, shimmering as if underwater. Pale, eyes wide with panic. Nate gasped. Julia? But then her face twisted, not in pain but into an expression of recognition. Her mouth moved, forming the word, Andre? I lunged forward to respond, but the feed shut off. The console flickered, then died. We stood in stunned silence. There was a soft sound behind us. A server stack lit up red. One by one, fans began to whirl to life, though no power should have remained. A nearby screen buzzed on, then another. On each monitor, user, Jules, Reverie, connecting. Dozens of feeds, her voice on all of them. Help me. I'm here. They can't see me. I'm still me. We ran. By the time we reached the car, the air was thick with an electromagnetic pressure, like standing beneath a thunderhead. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket. New live stream, Jewel, Reverie. I didn't open it. We drove straight back to Portland. But it didn't end there. 2 nights later, my Stream Core app launched itself. 2:14 a.m. My screen went black and again her voice. But this time she said, They're watching. They won't let me go. Tell Nate. He knows where the door is. I immediately called Nate. He didn't answer. The next morning, I drove to his place. The front door was ajar. His equipment was gone. Computer, cameras, drives, all cleared. The only thing left was a single post-it on his monitor. It read, She's not the only one trapped. That was the last I ever saw of Nate. Over the following months, rumors circulated. People on Stream Core forums claimed to have seen similar ghost feeds. Strange usernames, black screens, desperate voices. Many dismissed them as ARGs or viral marketing, but I knew better. I deleted my account, switched phones, moved houses. But it doesn't matter. Every Thursday at 2:14 a.m., the feed comes back. I no longer watch, but sometimes I listen. And last week she whispered something new. I found the others.